Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video on Umamusume, we're going to be talking about pull priorities, but from a new player perspective. And so this is something I try and do about once a month, as this is always a changing audience, as people are always joining the game as new players, and your priorities are always going to be different depending on when you join, because you've missed certain cards that have already gone past, but then you might have certain opportunities based on whether or not you want to reroll at the current time that you're starting the game, or the current events that are available. And so that's what we're going to talk about, is kind of assuming that you're a new player that has just recently started or are starting right now, and how you might want to approach building out your account. And so as a new player, like I say in all the videos, the first major goal is going to be kind of fleshing out your support card deck. And so the first main thing you might ask is, if you're starting brand new today, whether or not you want to reroll. And I still feel like this is always going to be something you're going to want to do. But if you're starting today, you might not want to spend too much time on it. And the reason being is that we do have in the current event a very strong free-to-play card that you're going to be able to freely MLB with the Mihono Bourbon Wit card. That'll be very strong if you ever want to build frontrunners, which I think frontrunner might be the kind of it might not be as easy to build as a new player long term or short term, just because they require so much. But this card is going to have a very long term value. So once you become more of a veteran, you will be able to fully utilize its value in that point. Now we do have a current banner that has 2 SSRs on it for reroll purposes. One of them is a speed card. Now, generally, I like to say reroll target should be the speed card, which you could do that with Xenorob Roy. It's more of a late surger speed card with a heal recovery for your late surgers and some pretty decent skills on it. So you can try and reroll on this for a couple copies. But when it comes to reroll, I would not want to actually spend that many pulls rerolling. Many times in the past, I've said, reroll, try and MLB the current speed card available, because it'll get you a really nice start. Right now, you've already missed the boat kind of on the current scenario, the Unity Cup, which will be out for about three to 4 more months. And because of that, I would personally kind of just write off the Unity Cup in terms of trying to be competitive in the graded champions meeting, which is the main PvP mode, and instead build for the open league, which only allows you to build a certain strength Uma, which even as a new player, you should be able to meet those thresholds fairly quickly. And by writing that one off, you can start focusing on working towards being able to be stronger in the next scenario, which is going to be make a new track. And so rather than actually rerolling on this and dumping a bunch of pulls into it, I would do a reroll where you maybe do like a couple 10 pulls just to kind of get yourself started with support cards. And then all the other pulls you have, save them for the support card banner that'll be coming out in about a month with the rerun of Kita-san Black. Now, if you've probably watched any of the older videos made from content creators, including myself, when the game launched on pulling priorities, you probably heard a million times of how important all my prior ones, I talk about how important this card, all the other content creators talk about how important it is. This is going to be the last rerun for it, and this is going to be where you're going to want to put all of your pulls that you can. And so if you do reroll, I would do like 10, 20, maybe 30 pulls, and actually try and get a copy of 3 specific cards. One of them being copies of Kita-san Black. If you can get a copy of Kita-san Black there, that can make it that much easier to MLB it here. Or we have the other 2 cards which came out on launch that were also targets on launch and will still continue to be valuable. Are a copy of Super Creek as well as Fine Motion. Those 2 cards, you get like 1 or 2 copies of them in 20 to 30 pulls. Call it a day. You're done. That's already really extremely good luck at this point, because there's a lot of SSRs. And then just save your pulls. You'll be able to build Umas. You'll be able to do the next champions meeting if you put some time into it. It'll be pretty hard, but with Open League, pretty much anybody that has an Uma at the highest rating of B that you can use in it, you will be able to potentially win even with your bad cards. And so at that point, just skip everything all the way until Kita-san Black. And then when Kita-san Black drops, that's going to be your banner that you dump everything you have into, not only to try and MLB Kita-san Black, but also to get a bunch of SR cards to flesh out your account so that you can now build stronger and stronger Umas from this point. I would pull on this one as many times as you can. I know when the game launched, after Kita-san Black came like a month and a half, I believe, after it launched, and I was able to do 2 full pities. And that would have been as a complete free-to-play with how much currency I was able to save up. So I'm pretty sure with the anniversary and all the rewards you should have in your mailbox as a brand new player, you should be able to get 2 pities on this, which, if you rerolled and got copies of that, should get you close to being able to MLB it. And even if you don't, if you get to like 3 limit break, it's going to be still a very usable card that you can then MLB once we get the next selector. And so this is definitely going to be your main target. So first thing is, make sure to get the current event MLB Mihono Bourbon Wit card. That's going to be completely free. Very, very strong for your account long term. Get a couple copies of the cards mentioned, and then save up for Kita-san Black here. It's pretty much that straightforward when it comes to polling for Umas, because I know you're probably going to want to pull on an Uma at some point. Now, you are given a random selector, or for the debut, as well as a selector. There's a couple target Umas you might want to go for. You have, personally, I would not take Ogre Cap at this point. I would actually take something like Taiki Shuttle or Maru Zensky. They both have very good alts that are good for inherits for other Umas that you might want to build. Then when it comes to polling, there's 2 that I would say are coming up are kind of big ones that can really help. Major Dober. Major of Dobers being one that can be a good ultimate inherit for your late surger and end closer Umas, as well as Ogre Cap Christmas, which is going to be a very strong Uma, but potentially not as strong as she was in the past based on the acceleration of the schedule. We'll have to kind of see how that goes. Now, as a new player, though, you could even just skip these if you want and continue to save all the way up, because you've probably blown a lot on Kita-san Black. You might not even have enough for these. Just save all the way until we get the New Year's banner here. Now, I've mentioned this one as being kind of a bait banner, especially for veterans, if you have a lot of Umas themselves. But as a new player, I think this one might be a very, very good for you. Now, if you're willing to spend a little bit of money on the anniversary, you can spend for the selector to select any Uma that came out prior to it. But this one kind of works in the same way in that there's no rate up. But once you hit pity on it, you can select any Uma that has been released prior to this banner on it. And so this is where you can acquire some of the big ones that you've missed at this point. One of them being Seiyun Sky. Since you're starting right now, you're going to start right off the bat with being able to get Mihono Bourbon Wit, which is a very strong frontrunner Wit card. You can pull on this banner to get a copy of Seiyun Sky at pity, which will be a very strong inherit for your frontrunners. And then you're going to be good to go coming into, say, Mihono Bourbon Valentine's later if you want to do frontrunners. If you want to do some other types of Umas, there's other ones in here. We're not going to go over every single one of them, which ones are strong for what. Just know this is going to be your opportunity. You might be able to do some research on what you might like or are working with, or what are your favorite Umas. And this will be your opportunity to get anything that has come out in the past. Just know you will have to pity it, meaning it will, unless you get very, very lucky, because you can see the rate's pretty low for any individual one. But you can select any one of them at pity. So this would be the main Uma banner that kind of gets to kind of flesh out your Umas and then select one at 200 that you want. And kind of from there, it's just continuing to save. The next banner I would say that you're going to want to pull is going to be the Fine Motion banner right here. If you've been able to save up a lot up to this point, hopefully you can get this one to 3 limit break. Very, very strong Wit card. We're going to be in the Wit meta at that point, and we're going to be getting into Make a New Track not too long after that. Your target goal is to have a fleshed out enough account to get around that 50 to 60% race bonus total on all of them. Fine Motion has 10% on it herself, being a strong card and a very good one to pull. And then after that point, we have Make a New Track starting. It's kind of hard to give advice for new players up to this point, because then it's going to be very dependent on what your luck was on your pulls. But I think this is kind of a good stopping point. At this point, you should hopefully, depending on how things have went, MLB Kita-san Black. You should have a decent selection of Umas based on what you pulled for, depending on what you're wanting to play. A Fine Motion that, if you've saved plenty, you should hopefully have at least Limit Break 2/3. We will have a selector coming out at the anniversary that you'll be able to get to add limit breaks to that. If you've been playing consistently using the limit break crystals that they give out as well. And so you should start having formulated a deck up to this point to be able to build semi-competitive ones in Make a New Track. And that's kind of where you go from there, and you kind of just follow the advice, in my opinion, based on what we're saying for more veteran players, because at this point you should be a little bit more established and kind of figuring out things from there depending on what your deck has. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts for a new player. There are different ways you can kind of approach it. If you want some more specific advice, you can always join my Discord. Try and be as active as I can within the chat, as well as a lot of people in the chat that can kind of give advice. You can kind of show what you currently have as a deck, and we can maybe help you out on more specific cases than kind of the generic advice I have here. But that's going to be it for now, and if you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.